Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, October 10th, 2024 meeting of the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District Board of Trustees. We'll call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Could we have roll call, please?
Mazer.
Brianna Texoni here.
Mask on here.
Falls Draft here. We are missing Dr. DeJesus tonight, who has a very important family function to attend. Is there any backup? I will move item C, agenda for the regular board meeting of October 10th, 2024, if there are no modifications to the agenda as published to the public.
The agenda stands. Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Call to question.
Mazer.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mask on it.
Fallsgraf, aye. Is there any public participation at this time?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to move that we adjourn to closed session, during
Second.
which we may discuss the conference with labor negotiators, public employee discussion, discipline, dismissal, release, conference with legal counsel, and or student matters.
Second.
Call to question.
Mazer.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mask on it.
Fallsgraf, aye. We will adjourn to closed session at 6:32 p.m. Good evening, everyone. We are reconvening the regular meeting of October 10th of the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District Board of Trustees. We have just returned from open session and we will reconvene this meeting at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Weingart, but would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Weingart will not be charging us $450 an hour to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, sir. I will do the civility statement because I need to be reminded of it most. When conducting the district's business, we will strive to communicate clearly and concisely with respect for the time of others. We will listen objectively, carefully considering the opinions of others. We will understand the counterproductive effects of disruptive, demeaning, and intimidating behaviors. We will understand and respect district policies and procedures, and we will maintain a respect for the rich history of the district and the efforts of others who have served in the past. Tab 5, report of action taken in closed session. There was no action taken in closed session. Tab 6, public comments, recognition, and reports. Is there any public comment at this time on non-agendized items?
Yes, we have 2 speaker cards.
Mr. Gary Rowe, would you come forward and state your name? You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Coach Gary with Vasquez Football. I'm here on behalf of Coach Perez and the rest of the coaching staff to just give a little update of football and also some of our academic goals. Football wise, we have won 3 games in a row in league. We're undefeated in league. Have a big game tomorrow night, a league game tomorrow night. Tied for first place and staying pretty healthy. Now, the main reason I'm here, I wanted to give everyone a little insight to the board of the goals that as a coaching staff with Coach Perez and myself and the other coaches have given to the students when it comes to academics and just being respectful young men. It's very important to our whole staff. So we just wanted to share that, we check grades regularly. We are in study hall every Wednesday, and even a couple students that get caught behind when we go to the, we call it the green room. When flag football has a game and we don't have our field available, we do extra work with those students. But we let the students and the team work together. You have some of the kids that get very good grades. School's a little easier for them, and we've grouped them together to work with other players. We had a couple kids fall behind, but within 2 days, we worked together in the green room, got all the grades up, and the kids, they know how important it is. Besides grades, we're just trying to coach them up and guide them to be good, respectful young men. We've had a lot of kids, in my opinion, they've grown up since we've taken over back in March. And a lot of these kids now, I get a lot of thanks. Our staff does, not me, our staff as a whole, especially Coach Perez. He's the one that leads it, from teachers and athletic director, the principal. I personally have worked with our athletic director, Mr. Sparks, with a couple students outside of football, outside of school. They might have some issues because it's very important for Coach Perez. He's put that in us as coaches, like we got to take care of these kids outside of football. So again, I want to come make a little update, and it's not just about football for Coach Perez and the rest of the staff. It's about helping these kids and guiding them to be respectful young men, good students, all the above. It's just important to us. So that's why I'm here tonight. I did say football first because it's exciting. And again, I want to thank the board, thank our awesome principal, Mr. Sparks, athletic director, and even all the teachers that have allowed even someone like me to talk to the teachers that, they give me information specifically with my group, because we're split into 4 groups on our team, where I can go to my kids to the side and say, hey, what are you doing in class? Be respectful. And they've gone a long way from day one. So again, that's why I'm here. Plan on coming to every board meeting. It might not be every time, but one coach lost his voice. The other coach had a family emergency. And I know Mr. Faustgraf's going to tell me my time's up. Last time he was pretty good on it. But thank you, everybody. That's the Vasquez football update.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rowe. We have a speaker that's gonna do a community update on the AV SELPA. Please come on up and state your name for the record. This is a community update.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Angie Martin, and I serve this district as its volunteer representative to the Antelope Valley Special Education Local Plan Area Community Advisory Committee. That's a mouthful, or AV SELPA CAC, which exists to support the special education services that students in our district receive. As the chairperson of the CAC, I support the broader goal of serving special education services students in the 10 districts that make up the Antelope Valley SELPA. As part of that work, we hold informational meetings, offer trainings, and support resource events throughout the region each school year. I wanted to stop by and share the following about the 24-25 school year. We sent out a survey late last year, which informed our decisions about programming and events. So up on the screen is our yearly calendar that we've come up with after that survey regarding what topics that parents wanted to be informed on and what times was most important to them. So we usually only meet in the evenings, but so many parents wanted that kind of 10 to 11-ish time slot. So we made some changes to accommodate that. And then our next month's meeting, thank you, Alex, is going to be Special Ed 101. And we're going to be going through a lot of really important topics that involve all aspects of special education. IEP 101 has always been our very most highly attended trainings. And so it's always exciting to share just the really basic information about it, because so many parents just don't really understand it. So I would like to encourage our principals to put the calendar and flyers on their school website. The final draft should be hitting your inbox very soon. It has to go to translation. And I would like to close out by saying, assuming that the board will support the staff recommendation regarding the SPED coordinator reference in the agenda for this evening's meeting, I would like to welcome the new SPED coordinator to our district, and I look forward to working with them in my service as the district CAC rep. Thank you.
Thank you. Seems you have a fan club. 7, correspondence, proposals, and reports at a wrap.
Hi, thank you for letting me talk. I just wanted to give first a shout out to our teacher of the year, Michelle Fernandez. She's just an amazing teacher. She love her to death, and I'm gonna miss her to death because I have to congratulate her and Miss Candace Palacios on their new positions that they have accepted at different districts. I want to say good luck to them, and Ada is going to really miss them a lot. They're amazing teachers, and so it's going to be a big hit. And then we will continue to look forward to working with the district on all of the different issues we're facing at the different sites. Thank you.
Thank you. CSEA wrap, nothing. Thank you. Student representative to the board, before we start, I owe you a huge apology. I understand that you had actually a report last week ready before you were even formally sat on the board. Please take your time this evening and catch up and tell us what you have to rejoice from the student body.
That's okay.
You're on.
Thank you. I was very well prepared last month. I apologize. I'm not as well prepared today. Okay, I'd like to start with our Meadowlark Elementary School. This is our parent news. Meadowlark is hosting a Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd to the 31st, to help us celebrate our commitment to a safe, supportive, and drug-free environment for all. Moving on, we have Vasquez High School Senior Night, which is posted for the elementary school. Kindergarten students will be joining Vasquez High School seniors on November 1st for our last football game, our last home game. They will meet at 6 o'clock on the field, with seniors are going to have little gifts for the kindergartners, and they're going to have a little moment to say goodbye and welcome them into elementary school. I believe that is it for the middle school. Or the elementary school. Moving on to High Desert. These are some Hawk highlights. Mrs. Goodstein did some great work with the homecoming parade float and leadership with their ASB class, as well as the high school's ASB class. Mrs. Bottom did a phenomenal work juggling 2 different leagues, which is allowing us to have both JV and varsity teams and more students participating in athletics. Mr. Hernandez, our amazing maintenance person, Juan Hernandez, has been working tirelessly all summer to get our campus ready for our students. In addition, he has been working hard at assembling all the items for our outdoor play area, and we are very grateful for his help. Mrs. Graff has been serving as a long-term sub for history to start the school year. She is very talented, and all of the students love her, and I can speak from experience. She was a long-term sub for me for English last year, and she's amazing. Mrs. Adelise, from parent volunteer to employee, she consistently looks for ways to help on campus in any way possible. So a thank you to her. Jack, Gabrielle, Blanco, and Abel, making the right choices in PE to participate and do his best. Cassidy Olson was staying in at lunch to help the teacher renumber Chromebooks, which was very appreciated. Michael Betwarda, being respectful of the class environment and going out of his way to help teachers with technology, very sweet. Ben Fatul, helping his peers with their novel study journals, and Lana Lean taking her time to submit high quality, beautiful work. She has taken great pride in her work. I believe that is for English. Some past events for HDS. HDS Booster Club hosted their first Bunko Night on September 13th. It was a spooky good time for all. Thank you to the Booster President, Corrine Bailey, for her inspired ideas and finding new and exciting ways to raise funds to support our Hawks. Family game night was a big success. 5th grade teachers had ice cream and popcorn to raise funds for outdoor science schools. HDS Booster Club served a delicious snack bar and hosted silent auctions to raise funds for Light Up Our Field. Hawks and their families had a great time connecting and playing on the outdoor equipment. Our first class of 5th graders attended Starbase at Edwards Air Force Base last week with Mrs. Reveles. They explored science through aviation and space exploration lenses. They even got to try on a spacesuit with Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong, wore during a test flight. Last Thursday, HDS welcomed a guest speaker, Ron L. James, to talk to our students about the choices they make in their lives. His goal is to help students make their next choice the best choice. Topics included making better choices, kindness, gratitude, and combating bullying and discrimination. His experience of being incarcerated for 25 years guided him to travel around the world and help students make better choices for their lives and to do better for themselves. Some upcoming events for HDS. Miss Heather, their secretary, won a Rent the Chicken contest for eggs for a classroom on campus. Mrs. Ayer's class is incubating the eggs, and they are due to hatch the first week of October, which I'm assuming already happened. Very fun. Yeah, okay. Mrs. Zuli Quesada has hosted our first coffee with the counselor on October 4th. She talked to families about understanding the root of their children's behavior and supporting their children with negative feelings or peer interactions. Some athletic updates for HDS. Varsity volleyball girls and boys teams are currently in 2nd place. The championships will be held at VHS on October 16th. The girls play at 3 p.m. and the boys will play at 5 p.m. We hope to see everyone there cheering on our Hawks. JV girls basketball, the team is small but mighty. Each game they play as a team with such love of the game. They played their closest match tonight at the High Desert against Santa Clarita Christian. Moving on to JV boys soccer. JV boys are enjoying their connections with the Santa Clarita league schools. They are currently undefeated and played today at 3:50 at the Santa Clarita Indoor Soccer Center. Cross country, the first two races were canceled due to heat, but the race was on today at Pewitt Middle School. Great job to all of our runners. Spirit Squad performed at VHS homecoming football game with VHS cheer and at the basketball game, and the VHS cheer connection is a great opportunity for the students for collaboration and mentorship. Some campus updates. Thank you to the AADUSD School District and Board for supporting new outdoor play equipment, including foosball, pickleball, ping pong, gaga ball, giant yard games, and an adventure area with giant Legos. Students engaged in active play supports a better school experience for everybody. And that is it for HDS. Moving on to Vasquez High School, my school. Our highlights of this month is that Mrs. Walker did an amazing job organizing the homecoming parade, the homecoming dance, and the pep rally with ASB. Acellus has been very successful. We have no D's and F's on progress reports. Last year was a 60% passing rate. This year, we are at a 99%. That's amazing. Past events, the college fair, 60 students attended the college fair 2 weeks ago at the LA Convention Center. College application workshop took place last week on September 18th, excuse me. FAFSA, we held a FAFSA workshop for students to support with helping fill out FAFSA education forms, and there was actually a college, sorry guys, what's the word? One of the application representatives at one of the colleges to come and help. Okay, yeah. Sorry. We have some upcoming events. The PSAT and our PSAT test is taking place on the 30th for 11th grade and the SAT on the 29th for 12th grade. Athletics, volleyball is doing great. They have more wins this year than the previous 3 years combined, and tonight was actually their senior night, which was very successful as well. Cross country, there was a meet at VHS on September 26th, which was also very successful. Football, Coach Perez and the football team has had several amazing wins. Cheer did a wonderful job motivating the large crowd at the homecoming game and continue to support our spirit. And that is it for athletics. Campus updates. Office beautification has started. The office looks very uplifting and spectacular so far. Please come and check it out. And that is all. Yes, I know that girl. I know her. We played softball together. We get mistaken a lot for each other.
Thank you. Natalie, great job. Congratulations. I'll keep my comments brief this evening. I'll be covering 2 goals from our plan. Goal 1, student achievement, and then goal 3, community engagement. Goal 1, student achievement. On October 1st, the district, we hosted our kickoff DLAC meeting, District English Learner Advisory Committee. It's a committee that advises the school district on programs and services for our English learners. Committee is typically made up of parents, staff, community members, and guardians of English learners. The meeting was very well attended by our parents. We're trying to keep that up. Updates from each school site's ELAC representative was provided to the group at large. Looking forward to the December school board meeting where we'll spotlight our English learners with a celebratory recognition for our scholars who have reclassified. Moving forward, community engagement goal 3, Vasquez High School students stepped up and transported heavy storage boxes of books to the library community room last Friday, I want to say 2 Fridays ago, showing their strength and dedication to preparing for the book sale and supporting the Friends of Acton Agua Dulce Library. The pictures you'll see that are up there were provided by the library president, Ramona Hall. Thank you for this opportunity to give back to the community. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Board President.
Thank you. It is time now. We will hear from our subcommittees. I want to let you all know that the Education Committee subcommittee will kick off. That committee will be led by Board Clerk Taxoni, and Dr. DeJesus will be that. You can look forward to that happening in November. And now we will hear from the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee.
Thank you. We had our recent Facilities and Finance Subcommittee meeting on October 8th. Topics we covered were all of our deferred maintenance items, one of the first key things that we covered. So we went through and looked at a lot of the deferred maintenance items that are on the list. So things that just haven't been done that need to get done, that are absolutely mission critical, that can interrupt our ability to educate our kids if we don't solve them. We categorized things into different groups of what had to happen immediately. Few things were more nice to have, and some things would just simply have to be done immediately. So in our next meeting, we'll actually be grouping and making a recommendation to the board for the top items that need to be covered, that are just really mission critical things that have to get done. All the things that keep the lights on for the group. Next, we covered transportation costs and all of our different maintenance costs and how much we're spending on transportation, charter buses, etc. And we actually looked at what the best options were for us for the future. We had recently purchased one new bus, and we're trying to figure out if that may need to be expanded or not. But we'll be looking forward to a recommendation from staff on what they think the best course of action would be going forward from an economic and safety and service standpoint for our students. After that, we went through some different thoughts on how to evaluate for floor space within the school district. I think it's all glaring to most of us that Meadowlark is where the focus needs to be from a floor space perspective. And we've asked they'll be getting quotes from a consultant to actually help us with what the different plans and course of action could be, what our options are, and what the cost could prospectively be to solve those issues over at Meadowlark. And we'll be covering that at our next meeting as well. I hope some of you can attend.
I think Mr. Mascone pretty much covered the whole thing, but we are getting way more in depth now with what we're doing. Like you said, and keeping the lights on, making sure roofs are good so we're not leaking, and getting our kids transported to where they need safely. So that's all I got for right now.
Thank you. These subcommittees exist to inform members of the community as to what's going on. They're a forum where you can come in following the civility statement and express concerns. You have staff interacting, but it's basically, it makes the business of this board more focused. It's not learn about your district through gossip in the parking lot. There is a library of these meetings. They would be a great resource for someone that wants to serve on a site safety committee, serve a role in a parent organization, or even decide that they want to run up here. Because when you get up here, it's so easy to be burdensome to the staff while you're on your learning curve and introducing all kinds of new stuff that number one, they're not polite enough to tell you, we don't have the money. That's not what we do. So this is a great place, and we've got a good talent pool on this board. So you will see this advance to the point where when there are discussion items, you will see people asking from this position, does the subcommittee have a recommendation for the board? It expedites business at folks. So thank you for your service, you all. I am so looking forward to what the education subcommittee can do very soon. Moving on, do we have any submissions?
There are no new submissions this evening. However, Options for Youth will be presenting their submission on November 14th. Thank you.
Okay, I do have a quick comment. the last hearing that we had, there were some questions, some follow-up questions, and staff and the petitioner have been very responsive. So thank you. That makes our job of being informed to understand your final recommendation much easier. I will move in, starting with 8, the consent agenda. I will move in the consent agenda, barring that no one is going to pull any of the items. They include the minutes of the last board meeting, September 26th, the warrant register, purchase orders, and the Williams quarterly. You know, I think I'll pull that one just so I can hear how wonderful that is. But I move in consent agenda items B, C, and D. Do I have a second?
Jillian, second.
Okay. That threw me for a loop. That's the first time I've ever seen that happen, but I'll roll with it. I'm an old man. Does anyone want to pull any of the consent agenda items for discussion? Okay, so call the question on consent agenda items B, C, and D.
Sorry, the Jillian, I.
Mazi.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mascot.
Falls graph I will move in discussion of item E, Williams Quarterly First Quarter Report 2024 and 25.
Sure. Our
I need a
first,
second.
sorry.
Thank you.
I do apologize. First quarter, when it comes to the Williams quarterly filings on 3 elements, instructional materials, facilities, and teacher vacancy / misassignments, there were 0 filings, 0 complaints for first quarter Williams.
Perfect. This is a perfect example where I would be asking the facilities and finance subcommittees and the educational subcommittee to make comments if there are any. Call to question.
The Jillian, I.
Mazi.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mascot.
Falls graph I will move in the personnel action report.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Falsgraf. No changes, of course, to the PAR. Two announcements, if I may. Again, Ms. Carrie Wright did mention 2 of our Metal Art teachers. We do wish them well as they embark on a promotion at a neighboring district. Congratulations. We are also thrilled to have a new SPED coordinator listed on the PAR, potentially joining our team, Ms. Devana Colin. She comes to us experienced having served as a SPED program specialist and most recently as a school site administrator. And she has detailed knowledge of SPED practices and protocols. So we look forward to that work together.
I was making sure we had done the whole consent agenda as well.
You do that when you're the president.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's only 2 meetings away, guys. Is there any discussion on the personnel action report? Hearing none. Call the question. Go ahead.
I just want to shed a tear and it's really sad when I sit up here and congratulate and throw a whole ton of well-deserved accolades to our teacher of the year. And then the next meeting, she's resigning. And if I had my way, I would vote no and keep her here forever. And Ms. Palacios, because they're both fantastic. And I just wanted to let them publicly know how much they meant to me and my family and this district as a whole.
Any other comments? You have a quorum if you'd care to make that vote. Call the question.
The Jillian, I.
Mazi.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Mascot.
Falls graph I. B. I will move in, quote, imagine learning not to exceed 75,400.
Second.
Thank you. So as we go through recruitment process for typical positions such as teachers, certificated, classified, what have you, the SPED component is sometimes difficult to fill. And in this case, the quote for Imagine Learning not to exceed 75,400 will be for an SLP, speech pathologist. We will be receiving the same, they will be receiving a comparable salary to what our current speech pathologists earn here at the district. I do also want to mention that the agency has promised us that there'll be continuum of services with one speech pathologist versus a rotating and revolving door of speech pathologists. Thank you.
Comments? Superintendent, the therapists go unrepresented by association, is that correct?
That's correct.
And as you've said, we're not gonna have a new speech science pathologist trying to pick up the nuances of each child new each week. I like that.
Correct.
Anybody else one more time? No. Call the question.
DeJillian, I.
Mays, aye.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Masco.
Falls graph I. I'll move in item C, resolution 2024-2505, authorization of local assignment option.
I'll second.
Thank you. I'm all for efficiency. So the next three items, 9C through D, is a resolution providing 3 of our existing high school teachers authorization to teach outside of their major field of study. And for this instance, it would be for 3 teachers teaching Project Lead the Way. The pathways specifically would be for engineering, biomedical, and human body systems. Thank you.
Discussion? Call the question on item C.
Jillian, I.
Mays, aye.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Masco.
Falls graph I. I will move in item D, resolution 2024-25.06, authorization of local assignment option. We have our discussion from the superintendent. Is there any from the board?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the board? Call the question.
DeJillian, I.
Mays, aye.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Masco.
Falls graph I. I'll move in item E, resolution 2024-25.07, authorization of local assignment option.
I'll second.
Again, the superintendent has provided us his update. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, call the question.
DeJillian, I.
Mays, aye.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Masco.
Falls graph I. I will move in. I will open. Let's see here. I will make a motion to open the hearing for item A, public hearing, charter renewal. I lead at 8:03 PM.
I'll second.
Thank you, board. Before we start with the public hearing, I know we have the open hearing time. Our Director of Charter Services, Ms. Pattison, will share with us a detailed process of submission through approval of charter renewals or non-renewals as part of the process. Ms. Pattison.
Good evening. My name is Nishay Pattison. I'm the Director of Charter Services. And tonight I'm just giving a quick overview of what the next steps are in the charter renewal process. We start with the charter petition review timelines. So essentially what happens is the charter school submits the petition, and this can be done through a formal submission to the board, or it can be turned into the district office. What is different about the renewal is that because we have a relationship with the charters, we tend to have a little bit more communications with the understanding that we are in a 90-day timeline. And that 90-day timeline takes into consideration how often the board meets during holidays. For example, in December, the board meets once. In November, the board meets once. And so we're taking into consideration that 90-day timeline. And so in the submission process, we meet to determine what dates particular charters will actually submit. Next, the charter goes before the board to present an overview of their board's operations in the form of a public hearing. with equal time for board members to make comment and to ask questions of petitioners. This needs to be done within 60 days of receipt of the renewal petition. This can happen sooner than the 60 days, but the issue is that it all has to fall into a 90-day timeline. So the purpose for most charter schools wanting to go earlier in the year is because it gives them the opportunity, if they are denied, to be able to appeal to the County Board of Education, and also to be able to appeal to the State Board of Education should they be denied instead of renewed. It allows for charters during this presentation to also provide more insight and clarity into their petition. Because of course, the petition is just a written document, but the public hearing allows them to give more meat and information to that written petition. Next is the charter department posts findings and makes a recommendation to the board in either an approval or denial of the renewal of the charter school. This has to be done 15 days prior to the board vote, which is a newer requirement. And so in doing this, also remembering that this all is still falling into the 90-day timeline. So within that time, a posting of the charter department's recommendations to the board has to be made 15 days before that vote. What this allows also is for the petitioners to be able to make their rebuttal if it is a denial, and to be able to provide with any additional materials or information that may possibly persuade the board or the department to approve. Next is that the equivalent time and procedures for petitioners to present evidence and testimony in response to district staff recommendations. And these might be, once again, the extenuating circumstances as to why maybe certain recommendations for denial were made. From there, the board votes to approve or deny the charter school. So essentially here, the board's role is to consider the level of support for the petition. It's also to review and consider the staff recommendations and to approve or deny. And so starred is that the district has 90 days from the date of a complete charter petition submission up to the board vote to act upon a decision to approve or deny a charter school. So when I say complete, meaning that there is nothing that is missing that is important to the review of that petition. So once we receive a complete petition to the time that the board votes, we have 90 days. If we mutually agree, the petitioners and the charter department, that there should be a 30-day extension of a timeline to approve or deny the charter, it can be granted. And so typically this might be that perhaps there was some type of letter or documentation that the charter needed, and without that we can't approve it. So it may be that we say, okay, let's take the additional 30 days because maybe that letter's coming in 2 weeks. And so that might be something that is a reason why we would give a 30-day extension. Okay. The petition review process. So once we receive the petition starts being evaluated. It has to align with the education code, state regulations, and other pertinent laws required for reviewing charter school petitions. So we don't just look at the charter petition and say, hey, this looks good. We actually have guidelines that we have to follow, matrix that we follow that gives us guidance to what we're looking for in that petition. There are 15 elements that are specified in Education Code Section 47605B, and they are reviewed to ensure that they have been satisfactorily addressed. So essentially, every single charter petition that comes to us has 15 elements that have to be addressed in that petition. That addressing of those 15 elements, we dive deeper. So in that petition, A might ask about a specific element. It's listed in the petition. If petition at that time, they may have questions on that element. The state guidelines state that where the criteria calls for judgments to be made, the judgments will be made in such a manner as to be reasonable, rational, and fair to the petitioners and other parties potentially affected by the charter of the school. So essentially, the decisions that we make are not with prejudice. They are based on guidelines. There may be some gray areas in certain parts of the petition, but that's where the questions come in. That's where the oversight comes in of having visited and spoken and provided oversight for the charters. Where there needs to be more substantive information or where the board has requested additional clarity, the charter school is expected to provide responses that answer such questions. So the questions may come from the petition review, it may come from the board, it may come from what was presented at the public hearing. It may be just an interest of clarity. But at no time does that information come from me or the petitioner and go directly to the board. At no time. The information is given to me. I give that information to the superintendent. The superintendent gives that information to the board. Here are the areas of review. These are the 15 elements that are in every charter petition, whether it's a new petition or a renewal. And I'll just give a couple of examples of some of those elements. So for example, it may in element E is the employee qualifications. In there, it may list job descriptions, it may list qualifications for those jobs, and it's very specific as to what that job and what that person performs in that job. It could be a review of element H, which is admissions and policies and procedures that may address if the charter school is at capacity for enrollment, how their lottery system may choose students. It may be also K is like the staff retirement system that lets us know, do they have STIRS, do they have PERS, do they have a 401k, and how they give that information to employees and who qualifies. So the charter petition review team, there's the director of charter services, myself. I do a complete review of the charter petition. It's looking at the entire petition. It's coordinating all the people who are looking at that charter petition and being able to make a final recommendation based on all of the components of the charter review team. We have an independent charter services consultant, and that person provides a complete independent review of the charter petition. We do not discuss what that person finds in that charter petition until the end. That way, we both have an unadulterated view of that petition, and any questions that come up, then we will discuss those questions and be able to address those questions with the charter to get additional answers. For example, many states, to include California, may have outside people who will be independent reviewers. I personally do independent reviews for North Carolina, and I didn't do it this year because I'm very busy, but it's a way for a petition to be reviewed by many eyes. The legal team that we have evaluates state, federal, county, and district interests as it pertains to how the charter school will and has operated as an independent charter under AAD-USD's authorization, and also completing the resolution that details the reasons why we've approved or denied the petition. We have an independent financial consultant. That person reviews the financial elements of the petition with which the charter will and has operated with, and establishes whether the physical viability and ongoing solvency of the charter school. It's different from when we have a new petition, because a new petition, that fiscal information is essentially assumptions and predictions of what that school may do. But with the renewal process, we look at what the petitioners have done in the past, how they're operating currently. And in the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, he or she also provides the past and present fiscal information that's pertinent to the operations of the charter, and will provide some of that information to the independent financial consultant. All of these people together will produce notes and information that we make our findings with, and that we make that recommendation for approval or denial. So in that, it's 90 days, plain and simple. There's the submission, public hearing, publish the findings, making recommendation to approve or deny, and then it is the public hearing that goes into board action to approve or deny.
Thank you, Superintendent. Could you have IT carve out her comments out of the board meeting tonight and post them as a separate item on the district website? So everybody who is looking for what needs to happen here can click on that and listen to this presentation. And then we would distribute a slideshow to the board members, any community members that want them, as well as posting the slideshow as a standalone item. Can we do that?
Yes, we'll work on that, and IT will work on the editing of this specific presentation.
So
Thank you.
you can help us out tonight by kind of letting us know what's next. When we're done with that part, what's next? Keep us in line, please. I referenced, for some of you that were here, you heard me talk about maintain a respect for the rich history of the district and the efforts of others who have served in the past. Before we get going here, I would like to call attention to Ms. Fisher, Ms. Coleman, and Dr. Bice, who have served admirably in the best ways in this district in the past. Dr. Bice, I think you would find that now that you're back here, that there's been some maturity in the district since you left, and my compliments to you. And apologies if necessary. Don't write that down, attorney. I didn't turn the timer on last time for assurance. So I guess it's 15 minutes. Try to keep it around there, please. Welcome aboard. Come on up.
Okay, so we have the director of iLead Online who will make the presentation for the public hearing, and her name is Kate Wolf.
Oh, thank you for having me here today. It's a privilege to be able to share about iLead Online for our renewal. We're ready to go. We're going to start with a short video that just captures some of our parents and our learners, our students' comments about their experiences.
When I first was thinking about working in online environments with lower school learners, I thought, how do you build that community? How do you meet their needs? And we're able to do it in a lot of unique ways. They're still able to engage in hands-on project work. They're still able to participate in developmentally appropriate curriculum. It's just innovating the way that they go out and do it and then come back and share it.
Miss Jody, she teaches us everything, math and art and painting materials. I meet with my teacher. I sing the morning song and I say hi.
Something I like best about iLead Online, I had a lot of projects that I thoroughly enjoyed. For example, I think it was a 6th grade program that I had with Miss Gunderson, they had us essentially make our own sort of civilization that we were going based off of journalism. And so I got to make a bunch of cool articles and make a tour about my city, and I made about this sort of satirical program about sort of a fascist regime. It was a whole thing. I had fun.
Families live really complex lives right now, and so having an education available to you anywhere and everywhere helps learners meet their goals. Our program is really flexible. We meet learners where they're at, work with them really hard to meet their growth goals. We individualize education and learning plans for all the learners. Unlike most online programs, we're able to customize the education and what learners are working on. So for example, I had a learner that was taking a chemistry course and she really struggled with the math aspect of chemistry. So in a traditional classroom, the content moves forward with all the kids. and same with other online programs. In our online program, she's allowed to work at her own step, focusing on the areas that she really needs support in. And then as the course concepts continue to build, she feels confident with the foundation that she has.
My advisor, Ms. Han, she was so helpful in making sure my schedule and my classwork like melded together well. She would take time out of her own like personal life just to help me out. She was a blessing.
I was able to learn things at my own pace and in my own certain way. I wasn't forced to only learn one certain way. I felt very supported at iLead Only. It was fun to learn. They made it fun. We could, if we didn't understand the material a certain way, we could propose our own ideas that showed our understanding, which was really nice.
So since establishing our school in 2017, we remain true to our vision of empowering people to become lifelong learners, empathetic citizens, authentic individuals, and design thinkers. We do this through the iLead methodology, which is based on 3 pillars of project-based learning: social emotional learning, and individualizing for each learner. iLead Online offers a unique blend of flexibility, personalized learning, and high academic standards that set it apart from other online programs. And here's how we do it. We offer a custom-built curriculum. Unlike many online schools that use prepackaged courses, all iLead Online courses are created by our facilitators, ensuring that they are flexible, project-based, and tailored to each learner's passions, interests, and needs. We offer a personalized learning team. Every single learner is supported by a team of facilitators, academic coaches, and real-time tutors who customize learning plans and projects to meet their individual needs. We offer project-based learning. Our facilitators are experts in project-based learning, which promotes deeper, more authentic learning. We prioritize personalized learning over standardized computer-based testing, holding students to a higher level of accountability. We offer comprehensive student support. iLead provides workshops, science labs, tutoring, and other enrichment opportunities that give learners the resources to thrive in their education. We have incredible instructor availability and support. iLead Online emphasizes strong communication and access to instructors, providing one-to-one coaching, real-time class meetings, tutoring, personalized academic support to help all of our students succeed. We are fully accredited and NCAA approved. Our courses are WASC accredited and meet NCAA standards, ensuring that our students are well prepared for college coursework and collegiate athletics. And we have a proven track record. iLead Online graduates have been admitted to prestigious colleges and universities across the U.S., reflecting the program's strong academic foundation. Getting into enrollment, in 2017-18, we started with just 13 learners, and over the last 7 years, we've continued to grow. This year, was at 343. As of today, we're at 363. Student demographics. With a smaller student population, the percentage changes quickly with the addition of 1 or 2 students in a subgroup, but overall, iLead Online has remained relatively consistent with the number of learners that qualify under students with disabilities, English language learners, and socioeconomically disadvantaged learners. Our students with disabilities was 11.2% last year, and we serve kids with all learning differences. iLead Online is designated by the state as falling on the middle track. So let's take a closer look at our data. We're going to look more closely at the colors, but on this slide, you can see that we've met all of our local indicators. In the area of chronic absenteeism, the state is currently at 24.3%, while iLead Online is only at 4.5%. Suspension rate is at 0%. iLead Online surpasses the state graduation rate with 89.8% of students graduating and 51% of students attending colleges. Based on California school dashboard, learners have grown 11 points in ELA, passing the distance from standard of the state, and online maintained in math. Math continues to be an area of emphasis for us. And we're doing great things with extra supports and small group instruction. Digging a little bit deeper into CASP, recent results show that the percent of learners who were proficient or advanced increased by 14.3% in ELA. And although our distance from standard maintained in math, you can see from this data that we did grow in our percent of met and exceeded by 5.3%. The following is growth by grade level. You can see that some data is not available due to small group sizes. However, the above charts show increases in almost every grade level, some grade levels jumping significantly in percent of learners that met or exceeded. This chart shows that all subgroups in ELA are making progress. In math, Hispanic remained the same. White and African American both grew 13% of students that had met or exceeded. This is the most recent available NWEA map data from the 23-24 school year, which is recognized by EdCode as being a source of verified data to ensure that our students are making growth. If we focus on this last target, we're looking for a CGI of -0.2 or higher, which equates to students making at least 1 year of academic growth. In ELA, our students surpassed this measure with 0.2. Again, looking at the last target, our students surpassed the goal of -0.2 and have a 0.8 growth, which is over a year of academic growth. At iLead Online, we measure the whole child, not just academic success. And one way we do this is by looking at learners' progress on learner outcomes, how they're developing into lifelong learners, empathetic citizens, authentic individuals, and design thinkers. Every student in our school has an individualized learning plan and creates goals for themselves with their facilitators' assistance and guidance. You can see that all learners are making progress toward meeting their individual goals. This slide shows the 3 LCAP goals that we're focused on for this cycle from the 24 through 27 school years, based on needs assessments from our learners, staff, and educational partners. We have some wonderfully innovative programs that I'm excited to share. We have Dream Up to Space, which provides the opportunity for our learners to become pioneers of space science as learners develop and use the engineering design process to design, test, and submit their own proposal for an experiment that can be run on the International Space Station. We have an adventure program for our littles that includes a box of manipulatives and tools sent directly to the learner that gives them opportunities to explore hands-on projects like seed growing. They get math manipulatives, just really helps them to move away from the screen and learn in a modality that makes the most sense to them. Clay World is an interdisciplinary learning opportunity that lets learners explore all their core subjects through sculpture. All materials are sent directly to the learners who create while they're learning. iLead Online offers a variety of virtual and in-person meetups and festivals to allow learners to connect with each other and their facilitators. We do everything from Getty Days with guest docents to nature hikes to marine biology labs at local aquariums. iLead Online is the recipient of the Strong Workforce Program grant for a high-demand industry sector in the region of game design. iLead Online continues to grow our CTE and AP programs. We offer learners authentic opportunities to explore their interests and graduate college and career ready. New and growing pathways and programs include public service, design, visual, and media arts, including podcasting and music production this year, mental and behavioral health, as I mentioned, music and video production, film studies, entrepreneurship, business and finance, child development, education and family services, and sports medicine. iLead Online learners use U-Science and SCORE starting in middle school to help assist the supports that they get in being college and career ready. And I'm proud to say that our AP Capstone Diploma program in our first year, iLead Online learners achieved an 89% pass rate, which is higher than both the California and the global average. Our learners benefit from college tours in person and career support from dedicated college and career counselors. For our financial snapshot, we anticipate a steady enrollment and a gradual increase in its total revenue each year, reflective of the standard COLA, keeping spending alignment with a positive net income each year. We're also projecting a steady enrollment at 330 students with an average daily attendance or ADA of 314. iLead Online meets the criteria for renewal based on everything that we've done. And we would like to end with a final quote from a parent of a 2024 graduate. Before iLead Online, my child showed no motivation to learn, interact with others, or even graduate. A friend of ours suggested that we might try iLead Online. With hope hanging on by a thread, we gave it a try. Now entering his senior year, my son was accepted to college to study cybersecurity. He even received a scholarship. He's becoming an engaged member of the family, and he's found a purpose. I'm forever indebted to iLead Online. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll do this. I did it last time. I'm going to ask board members, are there any of you, student rep, just kind of, I'm going to speak to some ethical issues here and some potential biases. I remember a time, and I think somebody in that group might remember a time when there wasn't a lot of focus on the education that the charters were bringing, but it was like this. And it was very difficult for someone with a focus on education, a career professional, to say, hey, when I'm developing charters and all this, I'm being very careful here, but you know what I'm talking about. And it was more about, we need that bottom line to be right because our district isn't able to do that on itself. So there can be motivations about charter renewals that fall in anywhere from strict financial motivations, career laddering, or even, hey, I'm going to need some floor space, and one of those charters has enough of it and enough students to solve my financial problems. So only I would say that, but I like that to be out there just in case we start smelling something fishy. I will also say this, if we raise concerns up here, when you guys have been doing this for 5 years and nobody at that table has raised those concerns through a corrective action notice or something like that, looks very suspicious. So I'm going to ask everybody on the board except the student rep. My advice to the student rep is, since you go to your own high school and stuff, I would kind of like not be involving myself much in where educational choice lies. So board members, is there anybody up here that can't be objective because they might have some bias that they want to declare? You'll remember last time I told everyone that there was a period of time where my child was trying to recover credits for graduation that were required at Vasquez that were not required at a charter that she was attending that collapsed suddenly. Anybody have an issue? Perfect, good. Let's carry on. I think it's time for, we can do board member questions now. Remember, if we ask you a question, if you don't know the answer, if you need extra time, we will expect that staff will collect the questions. No board member should contact you ever. Staff will collect the questions, and then you just provide an update, and that will come through your charter representative to the district and be off to the board members. So that said, Mr. Mays, do you have anything you'd like to hear from our petitioner?
I don't think you said anything, but what grade levels are you guys?
We serve TK through 12th grade.
Okay. And then the students, when they're online, do they work together or how's that go?
Sometimes, so they have access to lots of different ways to learn. We use a learning management system called Brightspace that has all of the content they need, including projects and lots of different options. As I mentioned, for our littles, they get boxes sent home with projects. And then we also offer daily live instruction, depending on the grade level, where kids get together in live groups and they share what they've done. They read together, they ask questions, they have fun. And that's in their regular instruction. And then in addition to that, we have advisory time where our high school learners meet both with their individual coaches and then all together as a group. So we have joint high school advisory where they have career days and we have industry professionals come in and speak to them and they get to ask questions. We have virtual festivals every fall, winter, and spring where they get to join together and do crafts and cook and do all sorts of fun things. And then we also have in-person meetups as well. So we just had our beach bash, our welcome back, where kids met and they played games at the beach. We have the pumpkin patch coming up at Underwood Farms. We've done a biology lab at the Long Beach Aquarium. And we keep adding them. Our facilitators are great at planning things all over the place that our kids can attend, and they really have enjoyed them.
And you have a certain demography area, or the area that you guys serve, or is it pretty much everywhere?
We serve areas that align with what we're allowed to in where we're chartered and active.
Okay.
So we are limited, yes.
Yeah. And how many children per classroom or per grade about?
Sure. So it varies depending on the grade level. I can say that our learners with their academic coaches are supported in about a 25-to-1 ratio or smaller.
Pull the slideshow if we need to. Let's pull the slideshow if we need to refer to. The question is about class sizes, and I think there was a slide early on about how many kids might be in what.
Sure. And also we have
online
small groups
classroom.
too.
There's one about total number of kids. I didn't see one on.
Yes, there was an enrollment one. And then we had one that was growth by grade level.
Okay. Fine.
If it's not there and the board member asks you for what that breakdown is, just put it in your notes.
Okay.
We're just remember, we're having a friendly discussion here. This is not the Inquisition of the old days. No
Yeah.
one's going
No,
to
no,
jail
No,
tonight.
I'm happy to share. I
No,
get
that's fine.
Perfect.
to work with incredible people and kids. So
And that's all the questions I have.
Brianna.
First, I'll say that I was blessed to work under some of this amazing team over here. Absolutely incredible women. But I will say that my vote as a board member will not reflect my admiration for your team. So I just want to put that out there. I do absolutely love those ladies. So fantastic team to bring, and it just makes my heart happy to see you guys. But my vote will not reflect that. I want to make that very clear. And also, professionally speaking, I work at a 7th through 12th grade virtual online school that is very similar to what you do. So it's very interesting for me to see another side of that. I don't get to go into a classroom and see what other virtual schools do. So this is very, very cool. So thank you for such a thorough report. I don't have any questions, but thank you very much for being here.
thank you for letting me share.
Hello, thank you again for your presentation. It was very thorough. I do have quite a familiarity with iLead, having served on the Agua Dulce board. So there's a high probability that I will recuse myself come time for the vote specifically for iLead. But I was always happy to be part of that environment over there. It was good. I do have a few questions for you though.
Sure.
Tell me about your facilities.
So we are a fully virtual school. We do not have any learning centers where kids go in person. We do have a back office space in Acton that we use for office duties.
I read on your website that you had availability for students to come meet in person when they needed to, if they need additional education in person or for meeting. Is that not something still available, or was it ever?
We used to have tutors available as needed as part of our extended school day, that they could book. We didn't have a lot of kids wanting that. They preferred to book virtually and meet one-to-one in that space. But currently we don't, I mean, we've never had any like learning.
Tell me about your budget health. So I see that you have a nice reserve. Can you tell me what the breakdown is between restricted and non-restricted funds? I'm looking at Kelly because I know she's probably the one to answer. All of it's unrestricted. Sounds good. I think finally, what are you most proud of that you offer or are doing for your student body?
Oh, that's the best part to get to share. I think that it's so kid-centered. I mean, I grew up in a very traditional way of being educated, private Catholic school, straight to UCLA. And when I had my own kids, I was like, hold on, like not everybody learns this way. And we need to make space for them and honor them and make them feel heard and successful. And I truly believe that that's what is at the heart of what we do. And I'm so proud of it.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is probably going to take a lot of minds. And I'm going to jump all over the map, starting with my finance director. You're on. Tell me how much profit this district makes off of this particular charter. Hang on. I'm not talking about fees. I'm talking about how much do we charge them that's over the required 1% or actual cost, whichever is less. People forget that. We can't just charge 1% if the actual cost is less. So the answer I'm looking for is we make no profit off of this charter. If you can't give me that answer right now, I need a full financial analysis of why we are profiting off of this charter and how that will cease immediately. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So do we make, outside of recovering costs, recovering everything that the charter that we're allowed to do, salaries, legal fees, all of that, are we taking any of their money in excess and putting it in our revenue stream as profit? Perfect. I love that answer. Staff, have you issued any correction notices to this charter during the life of their agreement as you are personally familiar with it? Okay, I've been waiting a little bit over a year to hear this one. Just hit me with it. Explain the charter structure to me. And here's what I need. Is this charter have dependencies on other charters that you guys run? And what I'm most interested in hearing is if there are different charters that have different authorizers with overlapping financial needs. I'll get to the hierarchy in a minute. But does this charter operate with its own governance? Do you have a governance body? Okay, so what I mean is, do you have a board? I'm not going to be up here much longer. So, no, good. Okay, so I don't know that it's proper for me to ask questions, but if you're the one blurting out the answers, I'll take it. You have your own board for this.
Yes, we do.
Here it comes. What board above you tells your board what to do? Okay, hang on. So let's flip that around. Does your board make decisions that affect subtending boards?
All work independently and isolation. I started in 2023, 2024, and the report was directly to Kate and to the IE's online improving their policy around board policy. So if Kate needs any type of support, like she would, or in a traditional setting when you go to the superintendent, et cetera, Kate comes to us. And we're currently working with it.
Okay, so this is really, really important to me. Is there somebody up here that is basically selling curriculum, program management, administrative services, holding themselves out as one of your charters, but that when it comes to administration, when it comes to buying curriculum, that this board up here, these are subservient?
That they're out, and that was one of the objectives, actually priorities for me as a new board member there, was to evaluate the curriculum and to make sure that things were done both ethically and also mutually exclusive, where as a board, if we decided by a majority vote that this is not the right fit, this type of curriculum or even this type of back end support, respectfully, that IE or ICA offered, that we would be able to transition and choose someone else.
Does ICA have a board that supports them?
Yes.
Yeah.
They do.
I can answer that because I'm in my today.
Okay,
So the way we're connected is Ivy Hybrid Charter School. We're in a shared resource agreement. So
Okay.
there's 6 charter schools that enter this agreement, and the cost of us is parsed out between us to share costs for things like HR and payroll and finance, professional development, leadership support and technology and safety.
if I may, just because you're a charter doesn't mean that you have to follow some other type of arrangement, such as Meadowlark does not have its own board, High Desert, and the people that work in our, you could call it back house, you call it whatever you want. It's a collective that makes sure that there's basically a superintendent-like person up at the top, making sure everyone has what they need. But my question to you is this, I'm going to make this very pointed. Does the board that supports you, do you guys hold ICA or whatever you're calling it? I guess you could call it Maker Network or just whatever you wanted to call it. Just go with it. Go with it here. I'm taking you where I wanted to know where you're at for a year and a half. I wasn't happy about it, but I'll leave it alone. At the end of the day, your board that serves you as the administrator, the superintendent of the school, you're the front office for the entire charter network is really what's going on here. Everybody that needs books, help, finances.
All of them for her own school. She can come to us and say, do you have recommendations of curriculum that you think would be best? And we give her 2 to 3 curriculums.
So her board could take her recommendations, just like we do for all of our schools, and say, yeah, I don't think this is a fit. Since she's in the iLead network, what are the ramifications if she were to go out and pick somebody else?
60-day notice.
Good. So again, your board that runs you guys They don't hold themselves out as a school.
Our board runs hybrid.
Okay, but they're also the vendor.
Also have a digital personnel that helps the other.
Okay, I'm worried about the governance structure in which the board that provides curriculum and back charges the sites, everybody back charges to the sites. I mean, there's a cost for everything. I'm worried about what the perception is that one board could usurp another. I'll expect a shaking head won't help me here. Perfect. So kind of here's my question. Is there one board that could usurp the local control for any of your schools? That's just the question. Just tell me what and how and why. I asked that of others. I really didn't get it. It makes me nervous if I don't have the financial things, because if a charter blows it, my kids suffer. So we already talked about the hierarchy. Here's an important one. If I say, show me your position control for you guys as top end, you guys are the ones that are supplying the financial and educational support services, just like these people do for us. Would I find position controls that add up to more than one? So in other words, I've got somebody charging a principal salary at 7 different schools saying that they're 75% of their, I've seen that, I've seen that, right? So there's no duplication where somebody's up here doing this. So there are position controls for your charter that kind of say, I actually serve a function and this is what it is, and there's a job description. That's great. Thank you. So you have your own administrative structure at your school.
That's correct.
Perfect. And we've already covered, you have a board, everybody else has a board.
Correct.
So you guys don't need exceptions to WIOA exceptions and things like that. Do you have anything you want to tell me about that you need an exception for current charter law that you should tell us about?
No.
Good. How many due process filings have you had?
None.
Okay, so you know that anybody could pull up on their phone right now and get into California or the Department of Justice and look and see if that's true, but you've had none.
We had a
That was my
settlement,
next question.
but
Have you
no
had
findings.
settlements?
Yes, we had one SPED settlement last year.
And I would say that sometimes the attorneys, there's a book called Due Process, and it basically tells you if you blew it at this level, what the attorney's going to tell you to do to get out of it at the next level has nothing to do with real corrective action. It's interesting. I had a problem finding that book and getting a hold of it. Do you use a pre-enrollment questionnaire to screen out things like, tell me what languages your grandfather spoke before he or she, anything like that?
No, we have no pre-screening applications.
Would you pull up your SPED eligibility list for me while I'm going on? Okay, here we go. How many of your financial audit reports have been late in the last 5 years? And just leave that up there. Everybody's attention now.
So there was one request from an auditor for an extension in the past 5 years due to the auditor's father's passing. And there was also a late audit during COVID due to several factors, including termination of services issues with Maker Learning Network, as well
Wow,
as
there is a company
understaffing.
named that. I thought I just made it up. Wow, cool.
Oh,
Okay,
I'll say
keep
it like
going.
it is. Due to some understaffing, as of today, the previous audit was issued with no findings and we're fully staffed and on time with our audit timeline this year.
So, again, one of my first questions was, has this charter specifically been issued any correction actions, which if there's an audit that is beyond timeline, that would have been one of them. And I heard the answer was there was no correction notices offered. Okay, thank you. Do you serve any students that are under court order to attend school?
Not at this time.
If you received a request from this district to take on a student who had been suspended or expelled from this district for the period of extension, would you, in accordance with state law?
Absolutely. We accept
Thank
all
you.
kids.
So some of these scores, can we get to the scores thing? Where you break down the one with the donut with the green. There we go. Blow that up, please. How would you characterize your cohorts? Meaning, like, usually pretty much around here, nobody's moving. They're all here. Everybody commutes into LA. The kids are in second grade. They go to third grade. Do your cohorts kind of vary from that a little bit because it's online?
To ask a clarifying question, are you asking if we have like variability in our population, like kids come and go?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, if I told you I want to know the kids that are in first grade today, how many of them would be in the fourth grade class later?
I don't think that I could accurately give you like an answer for that right now, but I'm happy to pull up some data on our.
No, I don't need that. What I need, you all used to run schools here, and Ms. Coleman, you know how many kids got out of Meadowlark and how many were still there. And it's like most of them. Does the nature of this do something to that expectation, or are there kids coming and going more than like a seat-based school in a little town? That's what I'm asking. I think one of the things that charters have to suffer with, especially the ones in WIOA programs and servicing mostly Title I kids, is you've got people coming in to catch up and then they disappear. And then you've got your 30 kid class from this year might actually have had 60 participants. So I was just trying to confirm that your scores aren't affected by transient populations that much.
And I would say it's actually, we're getting better and better. If I would say it, because of all of the ways that we've grown and focused on building relationships with kids, they come in and I've noticed that they've stayed.
So you're telling me your retention is good.
I think I'm proud of it. I think that we continue to improve it. And based on the feedback that we're getting from families and learners, I feel like that's a safe statement.
Okay, so that last question would lead to this one, which is, tell me how your staff deals with being committed in the interest of short-term students that are kind of coming in and out. I don't think that's an issue. Here's a good one. Do you pay this district any services that are SELPA related or SPED related?
No.
Remember when they used to have to pay 10% for every kid for absolutely nothing? And then and then somebody would file a lawsuit. And we would go, we got nothing to do with that. Not you guys. I mean, you two were having to deal with that when you were, I remember, sorry. You know how I was about that. I was up here raising hell. Isn't this a lot better than the old days? Anyway. So 0, right? Good. That's very good. So do you pay this district for use of any facilities?
No.
So you don't have a room over here that's full of books and then you can just like pretend it's full. Why are you laughing?
No, we do not.
They're laughing. So you pretend it's full so you can open up a school because you're so full that you have to go to San Bernardino. None of that, right?
None of that.
Them too. No? Okay, I'm done. I'm done. The questions I had, Amanda, you're taking notes. Explain your structure to us and what the function of the one school is in relation to the others and how issue me a statement that nobody's local control is being usurped. I had so much going on there. Did I trigger any thoughts here? Uh-oh. Bill, nothing. Brianna, please.
Back to student success. When you're online and you don't have face-to-face and there's kids that just aren't logging in, hard to get a hold of, they're not doing their work. What is your process for reaching and building a relationship with students that are engaging?
That's a great question. So we have our full MTSS tiered intervention program that includes, bringing kids in for one-to-one tutoring, small group instruction. But what I'm getting from your question is how to get them there in the first place, right? We have a full team of people that support these kids. So each kid gets an academic coach that they build relationships with, and that's at the front of it. And then like by the time they get to high school, they also get their individual course instructors. They have a counselor. We have an MTSS intervention specialist who, if a kid goes AWOL, right, she's making the phone calls along with the coach. And we've had really good success in just continuing to reach out our hands like, hey, we're here for you. And one of the ways that really gets them engaged is asking them about their passions and saying like, we'll build something that makes you feel like you're part of your learning. And so oftentimes with those kids, we build special passion projects alongside of them where they get to work with credentialed teachers to pick books, to design projects that are interdisciplinary. And that is huge in getting them engaged. I always give the example of like, we had a kid who rode horses and she wasn't interested in chemistry, but we did a whole science project on gut health in horses and how the pH of the gut affects performance and how that then gets affected by diet and how you might change it. She read literature on it. She did a write-up. She wasn't engaged until she got to have a voice in it. And we just had to open the conversation by saying like, hey, this is about you first and foremost. And it gets them talking a lot of the times.
You just mentioned bringing kids in for one-on-one tutoring, but you mean virtually, right?
Yes, virtually.
Okay.
I should specify that. Absolutely no sites at all. It's all virtual. And they prefer it that way, we found. They get a sign-up link. They can sign up for a time that works for them and they meet virtually. We also have small group instruction daily, really, that is both tier 1 and tier 2.
Your shared services agreement, does it have an evergreen clause?
I don't. Oh, no.
So how often do you have to renew it? Or how often does your board vote to renew that contract?
It is up for renewal next year. I believe it's every 3 years. Yeah. And we can get out within 60 days notice.
That's it?
That's it.
Is Sherry Shannon in the audience? Is Sherry Shannon around? Okay, so would you have her review this meeting, this hearing in its entirety, and then have her issue a statement regarding any financial interests or relationship she's had as an employee or a consultant with any iLead school? Thank you. What do we do next, Director? Are we done?
Thank you. I
Miss
appreciate-
Congeniality, would you take care of that?
I appreciate your time. It is a pleasure and an
This-
honor to be here. So thank you.
We will close this hearing at 9:04 PM, which is much longer than the 13-minute hearings we used to have. I'm having a good time on you guys spent. I move that we take a 5-minute recess, please. Can I
Second,
call the question?
DeJulian, I.
Mays, I.
Brianna Texoni, I.
Masco.
Falls, Jeff, if you got home Meeting back to order at 9:15 PM. And I am going to open a hearing for a public hearing for item B, California Voting Rights Act criteria for drafting maps, a presentation by legal counsel and demographer. I will open this hearing at 9:16 PM and I will read the following statement. There is none of that. I'm going to read the statement word for word that was provided to us by legal counsel. I will remind everyone that what was on the agenda tonight, and anytime this item shows up on the agenda, the entire packet for every document that has been provided to this issue will be attached and is available on the district website. Sorry for the redundance, but even the documents that are included tonight will be posted again and again and again until we go through this. Here is my statement. Good evening, everyone. I would never say that, Ron. Welcome to the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District's first public hearing on the criteria to be used for drafting trustee area maps under the California Voting Rights Act, or CVRA as it is commonly known. The purpose of this evening's public hearing is to receive input from the public on criteria used to be used for the maps of the 5 trustee areas that will be drawn by the demographer. Although the criteria are very specific in state law to some degree, the public's input on criteria will be very helpful. After tonight's hearing, there will be a second public hearing on October 24th to discuss the criteria as well. Before I turn the podium over to our legal counsel, Ronald Wenkart, to introduce our demographer, Justin Levitt, I'm going to mention a few major points. The CVRA is a state law which prohibits at-large voting systems that impair the ability of racial or ethnic minorities to elect the candidate of their choice. The CVRA favors district-based election systems in which candidates must reside in a trustee area, and only the voters residing in that trustee area vote for those candidates. To avoid the potential for litigation and the cost of attorney fees, the board has decided to modify the current election system and establish a district-based system for the 2026 election. That means that beginning in 2026, voters in those trustee areas up for election in 2026 will vote for one candidate in their trustee area, and the remaining trustees will hold an election in 2028. The charge in the election system will not affect the 2024 election or school attendance boundaries. I'm now going to turn over the podium to our legal counsel to introduce our demographer and provide us with additional information, followed by public input. Ron.
Board President Paulsgraf, thank you for that introduction. It's very much appreciated. My name is Ronald Wenkart. I'm the legal counsel for the school district in the CVRA matter. I'm going to introduce Justin Levitt. This will be his first time meeting with the board. He's Vice President of the National Demographics Corporation. In the past 6 years that I've been with the firm and have worked on CVRA matters, I've worked closely with Justin and NDC. Justin has been with NDC for 20 years now. He's worked with a number of jurisdictions with me in LA County and Orange County. He's also worked with several local districts here, the Lancaster School District and Westside School District. So with that, I'm going to introduce Justin, who's going to do a PowerPoint presentation, which will summarize the CVRA, the impact of the CVRA, districting rules and goals, key demographics of the district, and then we will request board and community input. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board and members of the community. Forgive me if I'm a bit rusty. This is my first public hearing I've been done since May. I think we've had a little bit of a break in this because of the election, but we're actually seeing these challenges start to ramp up again. So it's a pleasure to be with you tonight, although I know very few of these districts going through this process are doing so by choice. And so on that note, if we go to the next slide, I just want to kind of talk through, I know I said a lot of this in your introduction, but just to really emphasize that what this is really about is the method of electing the Board of Trustees. As part of this process, we're not changing any attendance areas. We're not changing the board's financial responsibility to the district as a whole, to all residents and all voters of the district. And all members of the board will continue to serve all residents of the district. This is really for the purposes of election. Most jurisdictions in California have traditionally elected at large, where all residents of the district have been able to vote for all the representatives on the board. And what the CVRA was written to encourage was this by trustee area system, where we divide the district into equally populated areas called trustee areas for school districts. And only the people within that trustee area get to vote for a representative who serves the voters in that area principally. So if we look at the CVRA itself on the next slide, basically the CVRA was a law that was written to make it easier to force jurisdictions to make this change. It makes the US does have a Federal Voting Rights Act. This actually removes 2 of the 4 tests under the Federal Voting Rights Act for determining whether or not there's a potential for racially polarized voting or racial discrimination. And it makes it easier for plaintiffs to come in and target jurisdictions. And if we go to the next slide, just to review some of the impact of the California Voting Rights Act, statewide, we have seen this massive change over the last decade and a half. We've now seen over 240 school districts, in addition to over now 200 cities as well. I know that slide says 160, it's now up to about 200. As well as other local districts such as water districts, healthcare districts, fire protection districts, airport districts, sanitary districts, and all sorts of special districts have also been targeted by this California Voting Rights Act. And the reason we see this is the way the law is written is that if a plaintiff wins a case in court, they get their fees, they get all their expenses. But if a jurisdiction wins, the best they can get is they don't have to switch to districts. They don't get reimbursed for any of the expenses that they've incurred in going through the lawsuit. And we can see some of the payouts that over the years to some of this major cities like Modesto, Anaheim, as well as smaller jurisdictions. The Tulare County Hospital District is a small healthcare district that just serves the city of Tulare up in the Central Valley. And we see some of the payments are well into the 6 or 7 figures. And to date, every lawsuit against the CVRA, most of them, other than the Santa Monica case, have not made it out of trial court. And so on the merits, every jurisdiction that has been sued has been found liable under the California Voting Rights Act. While the Santa Monica case remains in the court system, the most recent action was not over whether or not the CVRA would continue to exist, but what the standard of the CVRA would be. And I would say Santa Monica is already in it for over $20 million of their own expenses, money that they could not get back even if they prevail at the end of the day. And so because of that, all of these jurisdictions have moved to the California Voting Rights Act. And if we go to the next slide, the state actually sets out a process for making the transition within a certain time frame. And so these are our dates that we had as, when we were putting this together, and I can fill in the TBA as I talk about this timeline. 2 initial hearings are required to discuss the criteria, the background, and some of the demographic numbers that we'll get into in the following slides. These hearings, we don't have any maps. We're just here to listen to testimony on communities of interest, on the process, and hear from residents about where they would like lines to be drawn. As part of this, next Tuesday, we'll also be doing a community forum at 4 p.m. And then on the week after that, at our next regular board meeting on the 24th, we'll be doing the exact same presentation, same as today. Following that, we release the draft map. So by November 7th, the draft maps will be published online. And then following that, we'll have 2 hearings on the draft maps on the 14th of November and the 19th of December. At these hearings, the board will have an opportunity to review the maps, suggest changes, and eventually what we want to do is come to a map that can be adopted. Our goal for that is December 19th. As part of this stage of the process, we also have another community workshop scheduled for, I believe, for November 16th, but certainly in November. Community forum, November 20th. So again, that'll be with the draft maps. That'll be an opportunity for members of the community to come in on our virtual meeting in Zoom and look at the maps and provide feedback to us as well and to the board. Ultimately, the board's selection of a map on December 19th will go in front of the County Committee on School District Organization. That's the body that has to review any changes that school districts make to boundaries, election changes, and so on. They'll come up here and do one hearing within the district, generally followed by a formal approval at one of their regular board meetings. And that'll be probably in early 2025. We anticipate January or February for that. So that lays out the basic process. If we go to the next slide, we're getting into the criteria here. The state also sets out a set of rules that jurisdictions have to follow when drawing lines. And we divide them into 3 columns based on where they come from. And in that first column on the left, federal laws are things that apply to all jurisdictions anywhere in the country, from state redistricting down to our school district redistricting or drawing districts. And first and foremost is equal population. This is the idea that districts or trustee areas have to have more or less the same number of residents. We take that total population count from the 2020 census, divide that by 5 to get our ideal population, and each district has to remain fairly close to that number. We are allowed a maximum difference of 10% between the largest and smallest districts. And I'll give you some numbers on the next couple slides when we look at that in more detail. We also then have to look at the Federal Voting Rights Act. While race and ethnicity cannot be the only factor or the predominant factor in the creation of a district or trustee area, no racial gerrymandering, it does have to be one factor of many that we look at, especially as we consider communities of interest and neighborhoods. And that really brings us to the middle column. The middle column are a new set of rules that took effect January of this year called the Fair Maps Act. And these are prioritized in this order. First, geographic contiguity is the principle that all parts of a district have to touch each other. You can't have a little bit of the district of a trustee area at one end, the northeast side of it, another bit at the southeast or southwest side that have no physical connection or link to each other. Some people like to say it, it's the idea you have to be able to walk or drive from one part of a trustee area to all other parts of that trustee area without leaving the trustee area. Second is avoiding neighborhoods and a division of neighborhoods and communities of interest. This is really where the heart of the redistricting process or drawing districting process really lies, because what we're looking for is to keep areas that, as the law says, areas with socioeconomic or geographic similarities should be kept together for the purpose of their fair and effective representation. So if we identify specific communities, particularly communities smaller than the population of a trustee area, we need to work to keep those communities specifically together in our final map. If we have larger communities that make up more than one trustee area, what's the best way to divide that? What's the best natural division within a specific neighborhood or community? Third, avoiding division of cities and census designated places. This is the idea that we need to keep our neighborhoods or formally recognized communities whole.
Both Acton and Agua Dulce are recognized communities by LA County and by the census. And so we'll try to strive to minimize divisions of that. However, as we see, these are rank ordered. So if there is a neighborhood that spans the two communities or goes into other smaller communities, we should try to keep that community link together first, in that order of priority. Fourth, easily identifiable boundaries is the principle that it should be easy for voters to understand which trustee area they live in. So to the extent that we can use major roads and other natural or man-made features rather than just jogging through a small neighborhood, or maybe, you know, a small cul-de-sac with both each side of the cul-de-sac in two different trustee areas, we should try to do that. And then finally, compactness. And the law specifically defines compactness as not bypassing one group of people to get to a more distant group of people, which is really aimed at hooks and fingers, cutouts designed to get to a particular house or particular community. But I will say that, again, these are rank ordered. So if that new neighborhood boundary, if that community boundary does have a natural hook or finger because that's where the road goes, and we want to keep all the homes along the road in one area, that's what we would strive to do first. And that's a real issue a lot of times in communities where you have roads that kind of branch out from a major road and go down into the mountains, for example. The law also includes a prohibition in the third column that we shall not adopt areas that favor or discriminate against an incumbent, political candidate, or political party. And that basically expands what the law had previously said, talked about partisanship previously, just to make it clear that we're drawing these kind of blind to where people live or where people might live, run from. And then third, other traditional districting principles. If we anticipate that there's going to be some population change over the next 10 years, especially significant population change, then we can take that into consideration within our deviation of 10%. So these are some basic redistricting principles that the state requires we look at. And I think as we look at different maps through the process, we'll talk about these in more detail. But I want to turn now to the numbers. If we go to the next slide, looking at our total population, the census recorded 12,265 residents in the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District. Of that population, 64% were non-Hispanic white, 28% were Hispanic or Latino. And we're using the total population here, numbers here. So the demographics of the schools may actually look different than our total population. In fact, they will look different than our citizen voting age population. That's the population over the age of 18 with US citizenship. The courts refer to citizen voting age population as the eligible voter population. And for the Federal Voting Rights Act, the citizen voting age number is what we look at when we look at the need to draw districts that represent protected classes. And of that population, about a quarter, 24% are Latino, 70% non-Hispanic white, and a small remainder African-American and Asian. If we will go to the next slide, we look at some of this. We also have more information that would be available to the community as part of this process. For example, we can show breakdowns of where do we see families with children at home? Where do we see different languages spoken at home? Where do we see different income brackets or different housing, single and multifamily housing? The purpose of a lot of this is to provide some numbers that may help us get at communities of interest. Obviously, it's no substitute for your local knowledge of the community, but we do want to include information that might be useful to look at communities of interest. Now, we have this note here, and I want to come back to this. 12,600, what's the exact number? 2,265 people was the exact population. That's the number we divide by 5 to get each trustee area a population of 2,453. Now, I don't anticipate any of the trustee areas will be perfectly at that number because we're dealing with census blocks which have different populations. We need to stay within a small margin of that. In fact, really, if we have about 245 people difference between the largest and smallest, we'll stay within that 10% deviation. And so all of the maps will show you will meet that requirement. If we go to the next slide, we can look at some of these numbers on a map. And for our voting rights analysis, we don't really see a specific concentration of Latino residents anywhere within the district. The areas that are in the purples and blues are under 25 or 35% Latino. The areas in yellow and red are over 65 or 75%. But especially as we look at a rural area, the size of these areas are misleading. That big yellow area we see kind of in the southwest part of the district only has about 20 residents in that block. It's very large because it takes into account a very large area. And so sometimes it can look like, oh, this pink block looks very big, but there's only one resident in there, and that resident happens to be Latino, so therefore it's 100% Latino. So when we look at this analysis, we're not just looking at the size of the area, we're looking at the population, and where we see the denser populations. And what we don't see in this map is a whole side of the district that's in pink or yellow and a whole side that's not. That's what we'd be looking for that concentration. Go to the next slide. This really means that for our process, we're looking at this neighborhoods and communities of interest as our central idea. Now, we're going to come to you with several different draft maps. Our process is we don't present just one option and say, what do you like or dislike about it? Because looking at one map really makes it hard to see what the options are. So we like to come with 3 or 4 maps to present different ways of drawing the lines within school district. And what we're trying to look at, especially as we are trying to define where these lines should maybe start, is what are our neighborhoods? And I like to think of neighborhoods as the smallest kinds of building blocks that we use to build up trustee areas. So there are really areas that are geographically defined. That's really important for us. Along a particular street, around a particular feature, share a particular homeowners association or community association, or maybe pay into a specific district or street lighting or cemetery or other area. And so those are some examples of some physical features that really help us define the smallest units of our trustee areas. And the more we get into the geography, the more helpful it is, because if you say, well, don't put a line down First Street, that's much easier than to understand where it is. Then it's like, keep the Main Street community together, where people might have different ideas of what constitutes that Main Street community. So the more specific we get, generally the easier it is to make sure we're keeping neighborhoods together. And so if you don't know tonight, it's something to really think about for future meetings as well. We go to the next slide. Communities of interest are defined in law as areas that share a social or economic interest that should be kept together within a single district for the purpose of its effective and fair representation. This is the way that our building blocks start to come together to form shared issue or shared communities. Issues or communities that share issues, communities that share problems, communities that share concerns. And so we list a few different ideas of what those shared interests may be. Really, we're looking not for things that include like the partisan or political connection, but things that relate to everyone's day-to-day life, the traffic along a particular road, the issues maybe with buses or getting kids to school from a particular part of the area. That may be as simple as, the bus route that serves a particular part of the community has issues that the bus route serving a different part of the community does not have. And I'm keeping it vague here because every jurisdiction I go to has a different set of issues and communities that we look at, we find over the course of the process. If we go to the next slide, just some examples of some economic measures or percentage households with a child at home. These are some things we get from the Census Bureau that help us maybe look at our communities in a new way. We will have an interactive web viewer where you can view some of these online as well. If you would like to study some of our numbers in more detail, there's certainly no substitute for the real knowledge of the community that you'll bring. And then if we go to the last slide, really these first two hearings where we don't have any draft maps yet are aimed at getting at those communities of interest that we've been talking about through the presentation. So the more specifics we have, the easier and the better it is for the process. I'm also happy to answer any other questions you have about the districting process or anything to do with upcoming events or upcoming steps. So thank you very much for your time.
Is there any input from the community, or is anybody on Zoom who wanted to make a comment or anything like that? No, nobody? Okay. Yeah, or if there's any input from the board on communities of interest. If not, then we can end the public hearing.
Not to exceed $8,000.
I'll second.
Thank you. Through our Department of Justice grant, $8,000 would be allocated for staff training related to trauma-informed care. Nationally speaking, 80% of school-aged children have endured some level of trauma within their youth. So this training would comprise of a facilitator with our staff in the components of understanding the science behind trauma, improving knowledge of working with youth with trauma, as well as teacher and leadership strategies for self-care and self-regulation. I'll sign up for that one. So the 8,000 is carved out from the Department of Justice grant to facilitate the trauma-informed care training for staff. Thank you.
Is there any board discussion? Call the question?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I mean, just thank you for continuing to push on this and bring all this to fruition. I think it's all extremely important for our kids in the community.
Thank you. Call the question?
Jillian, I.
Mays, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mascot.
Paulsgraf, aye. I will move in item D, agreement with Atkinson, Ellison, Loya, Rudd, and Romo not to exceed $120,000.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's staff's recommendation to approve the annual contract for AALRR not to exceed 120,000. They're one of our legal counsels that provides us services. The 120,000, just to note, there have been years that the dollar amount is less. There are years it could be more, depending on the work at hand. So it's all relative. Thank you.
Board discussion? Hearing none, call the question?
Jillian, I.
Mays, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mascot.
Paulsgraf, aye. Moving on, board member comments. We'll start with board member Mays.
All right. It's at the Vasquez gym earlier today and the doors look great. They did the sticker things on them, look really good. And I'm looking forward to the Vasquez Fall Festival on 10/26. So let's have everybody show up to that. It'll be a good day. And congratulations to all the sports teams from High Desert to Vasquez. Everybody's doing a great job and glad to see so many kids participating.
I was able to be at the Vasquez homecoming game. It was fantastic. The energy was it's very cool. All the floats, all of the younger siblings from High Desert and Meadowlark, the High Desert float, really cool. All of the floats from the classes were fantastic. It was just a really fun event to be at. Congratulations to our sports that are continuing to win and make their mark. That's for High Desert and Vasquez. I was finally able to see a High Desert volleyball game. I absolutely love volleyball. I don't know why I didn't get into it sooner because it's so fun to watch. Definitely looking forward to the championships at Vasquez. I love when people from my daily life get to come out and I get to share how proud I am of Vasquez and High Desert and just share our facilities and share everything that we have going on with people from the Antelope Valley. I think it's very cool. And I love that our staff works together to make that happen. It's really fun. If you're not doing anything, come to those championship games. It's going to be a good time. I'm just looking forward to everything in general leading up to the holiday season. That's it.
Natalie, welcome, and thank you as your first, we got to do your presentation. So thank you for providing such a thorough presentation and having so much information about our schools, specifically High Desert and Vasquez. Those are very detailed. The only other comment I have is probably nobody listening at this point, but I really hope the community gets involved in what the attorney was just talking about, the demographer was just talking about. It'll really be up to you. Provide input on it. We will not, or at least I will not. So I hope others are getting involved.
Good evening. I want to talk a little bit about how difficult it is to find help nowadays in an employment market. And I'm going to use the agency I work for. Let's say that I have somebody that retires or decides to leave. Typically, your budget is set up to where that person has to leave. One of the problems with governmental organizations is they seldom allow for an overlap where somebody can come in, and then succession planning is kind of a joke, because let's say I want to someday have Alex's job. Then all of a sudden I'm being, there's favoritism. He knows me, my mom knows their mom. It's just very difficult to hire people in a governmental agency. So from the time I put in a hiring requisition, sometimes, and you'll hear me ask about, are there any purposeful hiring freezes, which means are we aging positions on purpose to save money? Because agencies will do that, because if you see a budget crisis coming, you can basically say, okay, I'm not going to hire any positions that would normally process in 90 days for another 60 days after that. So you've got all that going on. And then there is the application. The HR department when I work is full of people. There's a screening application, so you have to go through, you have to fill things out. By the time it gets to me, who is the hiring manager, there has been an online application. There has been a screening of people and categorizing them. And then there is an outside panel, which I'm a firm believer in. And by the time it gets to me, these people have been screened to the point where it's down to, I'm looking at 2 or 3 different people. And then I'm not a believer of a fit. Everybody says, if the number 1 candidate comes in, I hire number 1. If they fail, I get rid of them, and then I bring number 2 and 3 in. So this idea that everybody's got to be a fit, and everybody loves you and all that kind of thing, I'm not a believer in that. But to try to be compliant with all the regulations and to make sure that you're not picking someone because you know them or somebody up here is influencing you or whatever, that is hard enough. But when your client pool, when you're looking at a client pool and you've gone through everything, you've gone through best practices and basically said, you know, we're doing everything we can to put the most qualified people from the hiring pool, from the candidate pool up, and we're having to come forward and make a recommendation. This is why I always have a problem when we're talking about the personnel action report. I do not tell the superintendent who to hire. At my work, nobody tells me who I'm gonna hire. I'm given a great pool of people who are the best that the recruitment can give us to choose from. But I am ultimately responsible for the performance of my direct reports, and I am not known to be the best person to work for. I'm the most efficient person to work for, and my team survives based on their own individual excellence. And that's what I expect to come forward out of HR. So sometimes the process fails itself. Sometimes there are agencies above us or associated to us that we really look to. Imagine if a police department, if someone called in and said, I have somebody here that looks like this, kind of did this and that, and the person on the dispatch end looked at the what was coming in and said, oh, that's my brother-in-law. Oh, there's nothing here. Imagine that. So I want to tell you out in the community that there are sometimes things that we may not know about immediately. And as your board president, as the one up here that's held this position longest, I always caution board members, do not become involved in campus politics, because if somebody calls you up and said, oh, I got in trouble for this, and oh yeah, I remember you were my favorite, this or that, you kind of get in a position where, number one, you can be held liable for the actions of that person if you intercede in one way or another. Next is, and I went on a rant a while ago, if you got a problem with going to high school, go see your principal. Don't come to me. I'm not going to override the principals. It sets a very dangerous precedent. But when we get a personnel action report, again, I'm very resistant to anybody calling up things. I don't mind somebody congratulating or putting on a vote that says, hey, you're so important, I would never let you go. You heard the comment I made tonight about having a quorum, and I encouraged and had respect for what board member Taxoni says. But I will assure you that the HR department in this district always delivers us a candidate pool that they believe doesn't represent anything that has something in it that would be less than what our students deserve. And if that happens, then I want you to know it's never intentional. And I want to tell you a fairy tale. Let's say I do something at work that's just egregious. And someone tells me, you can either go or you can fight. And somebody has to make a decision in the organization. You know, Ken, he's spent so long being rowdy. We don't expect that much out of him anyway. And did anybody really get hurt in this or whatever? So somebody has to make a decision. Do we blow this up so everybody knows how we're going to put the hammer down, and then I turn around as an employee and sue everybody, or what? Now we're talking about kids. We're talking about the money that they need. We're talking about buses. We're talking about things all the time. So sometimes decisions are made. Also, sometimes we know things. I've had terrible things that I know from back there that I have to sit out here and be blasted for. And people know that I can't say anything. And if I do, I'm breaking the law. But at the end of the day, here's the bottom line. I expect the agencies that support us to do their job. And if somebody has some kind of rules that allow for some kind of a gap in information not to be available for our HR department to make the best hiring decision right now, that's all they can do. And so I'm very proud of our administrative team. I'm proud of our site principals. I used to ask Principal Van Ornum, where's the noise coming from your district? Raina, where's the noise coming from your district? I'm not up here to hear noise. I'm not up here to be a principal or a superintendent. I'm up here to make sure that the people that voted for me and the people that pay taxes aren't overtaxed, that their money's not wasted or stolen or pissed away on attorneys unnecessarily. That's my job. But I so admire you all for the things you have to do the right thing and to take care of a situation just like that. My compliments to you. You all know what I'm talking about, but somebody had to say something. Don't wait 2 years to report something that's going to affect somebody else. That's all I can say. I've said a lot. Does anybody else want to follow up on anything? Thank you. Nothing I said tonight had anything to do with what these people feel, think, or would say themselves, by the way. Moving along, there's a calendar. We have regular board meeting on October 24th. We have a regular board meeting on November 14th. And we have a regular board meeting on December 19th, which is your reorganizational meeting in which things will change up here. Is there a lack of a quorum on any of those days? Hearing nothing, good. Future agenda items, we have quite a list. We have the ELD reclassification celebration. We have the quarterly strategic plan report. You can bet, board members, that I'm going to call on you when that comes up for, I would like to hear your opinions on your area of expertise and how that fits into the strategic plan. I'm the veteran of a bunch of charrettes where you run around with a sticky note and put what it's on you on the board, and then you eat cookies and there's 4 people there. That's not the way I run business. I run business on identifying who the best staff are and then trying to figure out, well, I won't talk about that part. I just want to know who the best staff are, and it's 100%. And then you look at the problems you have and you figure out what makes you relevant in your market. Because if you're drifting away, it's only going to get worse. And then what do you need? You heard the facilities committee talking tonight about keeping the lights on projects. You're going to hear the educational subcommittee talking about what's really important, where our success lies, and how we need to prioritize those things to get what goals they think are important. That is what feeds the strategic plan, not free cookies. We got the CVRA updates. I have no comment on that. We've got the Meadowlark School presentation. I'm always excited to see that. And then one that's really important to me, and I will hope that as soon as this one takes place, or we can coincide those, that the community is also, through the education subcommittee, able to understand the AAD, USD standard recruiting and hiring procedures. I need everybody to know what that means down, including to all of the checks and balances that are in place to put our classrooms safe, not only of the facilities, staff, the whole deal. Board members, anything to say about that? Does everybody understand the importance of the subcommittee's input, tactical input to the strategic plan? I hope so. At that point, I will move for adjournment of this meeting at 9:59 p.m.
Second.
Call the question.
DeJillian, aye.
Mays, aye.
Brianna Texoni, aye.
Mascot.
Paul's graph, aye. Thank you all.